This is no ordinary OLED TV. This is the LG Gallery Series OLED M, the world's first wireless OLED TV. I love the premise, but does it actually work? Has anything been sacrificed? Well, we got the very first review unit, so let's find out. Oh yeah, that's big. Wireless box, here it is. Let's just go ahead and pull this out now and have a look. This is the first time I've been able to kind of pick it up and handle it. A little bit of plastic to remove. But this is it. This is the wireless transmission box. This is an aimable antenna that you see swirling around on the top here. 3, not 4, HDMI inputs. Most LG TVs come with 4 HDMI inputs. You only get 3 here. I'm not sure why. There is an optical output here, and I'm kind of struggling to think how that might work. I suppose if you were to put it in a media cabinet, you could run a soundbar off of that. Most soundbars, however, offer HDMI ARC or eARC, so I noticed on the side of this box it says SVC stand V2, version 2. Honestly, I've set up so many TVs and dealt with so many stands, it's hard to remember exactly what the previous stand was like. I just remember I didn't care for it a whole lot. Honestly, wasn't that a pedestal style stand? Yep, Lazy Susan. See, I remember now. I complained enough about it that I guess LG felt like sending a new style stand. Unfortunately, however, it means I have to learn how to assemble a new style stand, which I wasn't counting on. I'm gonna have to read some instructions. This is cute and everything, that it's showing like the TV with some speakers on the side, and I guess this would be the cabinet that it, what? Maybe there was some stuff under here. Yeah, I stand by the fact that I'm not wild about these instructions, but that was definitely partially me. So this is kind of a VESA mount compliant bar that will attach to the TV, and then this leg will attach to the bottom of this bar. But we're only doing this because we can't wall mount this TV here. From there, the instructions were fine, I guess. It was a little bit confusing because this mount is meant to be able to fit the 55, the 65, or the 77. I think it would probably also fit the 83. And that means that there are removable pieces to scale this down for the smaller TVs. I'm not sure I understand entirely why we have to have these buffer plastic pieces there. Maybe this is a me problem and not so much an LG problem. I'll say this, the components, the hardware are rock solid. And then once you do get things screwed in just right, it feels good. It feels good to get the screwing. We'll just leave my commentary at that. I think that's enough of that business. Let's get this thing up on the table. Let's peel some plastic. I love this part. It doesn't matter how many times I do it, I just like, ugh. Also, shout out LG. Thanks for the pull tab on the plastic. That's not a small deal. That should be a standard. Almost no bezels. We do have a little like 1/4-inch matrix around the actual display area, which we'll notice when we turn this on. I'm digging the 77-inch size. 85 is fun, but 77 just seems to like fit really well here. But before we can turn it on, we have to finish the installation, which involves the wireless box that I mentioned earlier. And here is where I feel like our setup kind of fails the concept of the wireless OLED TV. We have a cabinet into which we can put all our devices. Granted, we would be running multiple HDMI cables up to it. But when you have a cabinet, you can kind of hide those cables with some clever cable management. The idea of the wireless OLED, I think, is that you can house your components somewhere else. And I feel like we should give it a little bit of a challenge. So LG recommends about 30 feet, I think it is, of line of sight in order to have a stable signal. Well, it looks like after you get past the Zero Connect box related setup stuff, the rest is standard LG WebOS setup. I did connect the Xbox and the Blu-ray player. They were both automatically recognized. Everything is set up and good to go. I've gone ahead and put on a YouTube video for this section of the video, and I think if I stand here, we might start seeing some dropped frames or signal dropout. That's all gonna be part of the process here. stress testing this TV, finding out how far the wireless signal box can go from the TV before you start having problems. According to LG, there should be no loss of signal quality at all. There are a lot of unfamiliar things to test out with this thing, but I'm kind of looking forward to it. For me, it's gonna be about 2 or 3 days. For you, it's gonna be about 2 seconds until I'm back with the full review. And just like that, I'm back. And guys, I gotta tell you, reviewing the M3 was a lot more fun than I expected. I've got some useful information on how the wireless system works, as well as the final word on picture quality with this setup. But before I get into that, I have a few updates for you. First off, this stand has actually grown on me. I know I expressed frustration when I assembled it, but frankly, I was just having a tough day that day. Obviously, I've left that section in this video because the experience was what it was. But this stand, this pigeon-toed stand, I kind of like it now. My brain is telling me I should hate it, but I've been living with this TV for a solid week, and I don't know, guys, I really dig it. It's turned out to be stable enough, as I've moved the BDI console back and forth probably 30 times at this point. And it doesn't rake the TV back like the other stand did either. Now, I've not been able to find this stand on sale, so that's kind of weird. Maybe LG just hasn't put it up yet, but when I get that sorted out, I'll post an update down in the description. Moving along, I mentioned earlier that I was looking forward to experiencing the G3 OLED TV again in the form of the wireless M3 here, just to see if there was anything I missed in the original review or if I felt differently about it in any other way. And as a matter of fact, I have. I actually had to go back to my review to watch it because I did not recall being a big fan of the TV's onboard audio. And sure enough, this is what I had to say about the G3 sound. There's bass, it doesn't sound anemic, but it lacks presence, richness, and most of all, clarity. A TV with picture clarity this good deserves sound clarity too. So I'm gonna highly recommend at least a soundbar with this TV. So I still stand by some of that. This TV doesn't sound quite as good as the LG G2 or the Sony A95K. That's still true. But frankly, after using this TV for a week, I never connected the 9s to it. I never felt the need. It sounds pretty good, honestly. The bass is quite a bit better than I remember, and the clarity has been fine, actually. I even used it to listen to music, and no, it was not super hi-fi, but it was good enough for what I needed at the time. I think maybe I was a little too hard on it. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, with those updates out of the way, let's talk about how this wireless feature works. That is, after all, what we're really here for. Well, in short, it works really well. We launched straight into a torture test to figure out what the range and line of sight claims LG makes looks like in real life. Now, as a reminder, LG claims up to 30 feet with line of sight. And whenever you claim a range like that, you do expect some variables. So in order to test both the distance and also the line of sight reliance, I took the Zero Connect box upstairs to the loft, and that got me about 25 feet of distance from the TV. Now, using this on-screen signal checker, I was able to track the signal strength and get tips on how to improve it if needed. But there's also an LED indicator on the top of the Zero Connect box that tells me the same thing. Blue is awesome, green is good, yellow is getting into dicey territory, and red is a hard no-go. So long as the Zero Connect box had line of sight, and by that I mean the box could actually see this little receiver section on the bottom of the display, that light stayed blue. That is, unless I went out of my way to try to interrupt it. If I put my hand over this receiver on the display, I could get the signal to drop a bit, which looked like dropped frames on the TV. But just walking around the rooms, both upstairs and down, doing a little dance, the signal stayed solid, and I saw no alteration to the picture whatsoever. If, however, I dropped the Zero Connect down behind this little knee wall that's up in the loft, then we could see some initial interruptions at least. You can see the LED on the Zero Connect box going yellow at first, then eventually green, and at times it was full on blue as well. That's what happened initially. However, as the Zero Connect box remained in that location behind the knee wall for a while, what I noticed was that the connection became more stable. Now, this is just a theory, but it seemed that, like a lot of wireless devices, the Zero Connect box had done some wireless channel surfing and settled on the channel that worked best, and then locked it in. Again, that's just the story I'm telling myself based on the behavior I witnessed, but the fact is the signal locked in stronger over time, which I like a great deal. Continuing with the Zero Connect box placement test, I brought the unit downstairs and placed it in the back of the room with a clear line of sight to the TV, and the LED remained blue the entire time. I was not able to interrupt the signal by walking or dancing around. Again, I had to cover up the Zero Connect box or the wireless receiver module on the display to get it to trip up. This kind of deliberate move doesn't seem like a real-world scenario to me, but if you work for it, you can affect the wireless signal. Next, I moved the Zero Connect box into the BDI Elements console, and when I did so, I intentionally placed it under one of the shelves, so there were 2 layers of thick wood in between the box and the TV. According to the signal strength meter, this was the most challenging placement location. We've taken away line of sight, and the objects in the signal's paths are pretty significant. Before I discuss the results of this test, I want to talk about why I actually do think this is a realistic scenario for some folks, even though I said the opposite at the beginning of this video. Whether you wall mount this TV or put it on a stand, you might want to put your gear in a console like this below the TV and have the luxury of not having to run any wires to the TV at all. Just provide power and you're good. Personally speaking, I like the idea of being able to put the equipment somewhere else entirely in the room, especially if the location I choose is more suitable for using an OTA broadcast antenna where those signals come in best. But I think this is a more realistic scenario for most folks. Now, if you have an open cabinet, no doors or whatever, all the better. But even if your cabinet has doors like ours, though it is important to note that the doors do have holes and perforations in the screen, you might do okay, maybe. While the light on the Zero Connect box remains yellow even to this very moment, which by the way is code for not ideal or perhaps tenuous, I've had no problems with the TV's picture performance over the past week or so. No dropped frames, no image interruptions at all. There was one thing though that I have to mention. On one specific day in the last 6, I believe it was day 3, I kept getting this weak signal message on the TV. The picture never dropped out. There were no audio issues at all. No sign of struggle, actually, whatsoever. But this message popped up maybe 15 times while I was trying to watch a show. Interestingly, this seems to have coincided with my moving the BDI console back toward the wall a bit. And then, just as quickly as it started, the warning message stopped, and I've not seen it since. Now, again, this is just a theory, but I suspect that it may have taken a while for the Zero Connect box to lock onto a wireless channel of sorts that it found to be the most stable. Whatever actually happened, technically, though, it's been 3 days of frequent use without seeing that message again. And, of course, the TV has performed flawlessly as far as the picture and audio goes. All of this just goes to show that the invisible wireless signals that we use and live around every day can be hard to understand. We know that they are not always omnipresent. They can be very directional, and we also know that they aren't always linear. Despite the notion of line of sight, it is possible for a wireless signal to bounce off of a hard surface and land exactly where it needs to be. It's still directional, we just change the trajectory a little bit. All of this to say that even though I've thoroughly tested this wireless technology, your mileage will vary. You may get away with tucking the Zero Connect box in a place that isn't recommended, but then again, you may not. You may be able to place the box outside of its 30-foot range with the right conditions, or your conditions may require less than 30 feet. I can't predict what might happen with your use case, but I can say that I am pretty optimistic because in this space, with all the torture tests I gave it, the M3 has performed really admirably from a wireless signal perspective. As for the picture quality and latency, I can't tell any difference whatsoever between the M3's wireless system and an HDMI cable connection. None. There's no added compression or pixelization. Poor video source problems aren't further exacerbated by the wireless connection. I don't experience any perceivable lag with video games, though admittedly I'm not a hardcore FPS player. There was no alteration to motion resolution. Again, I might as well have had HDMI cables connected, but I didn't. And I loved the sense of freedom that that gave me. Now, there are some restrictions involved with this kind of setup. If you want to use a soundbar other than one of LG's own wireless soundbars or an AV receiver, keep in mind that the ARC or eARC connection is on the Zero Connect box. There are exactly 0 ports on this TV, or the display part of it anyway. So if you do want to use your own audio system, that means that the Zero Connect box will need to be within an HDMI cable's distance from those audio devices, which means you would need to house your equipment near the TV. Now, I can see you in the comments right now saying LG should just add an HDMI input to the display itself, except it really is not that simple. If LG did that, they'd have to add a whole board that had not only that HDMI input, but processing to go with it as well. Unless they were to double up on the transmission so that it went from the display to the Zero Connect box for processing, then back to the display. That would add cost, complexity, and probably some liabilities in terms of performance as well. And frankly, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think the better fix would be for the WiSA audio standard to take off. It's not going to, but it should. Anyway, then your audio system could just be wireless as well. So if it's not going to be WiSA, maybe it's something else. Otherwise, I think the M3 works great. What a cool TV. I've had so much fun with it. I love the M3 in practice, but even more, I love what it could mean for the future. I actually made a video all about that if you'd like to learn more, and I'm including that along with my full review of the LG G3 OLED on which this M3 is based. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, well, these are the two videos I think you might like.